Could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. in honor of Commander Carson and his yellow jacket and his burgundy shirt, I thought I would go all gold tonight with a splash of burgundy. A lot was made of his jacket and his ensemble. If you were a fan of the team, you probably thought it was cool. He looked great. I know I heard a lot of jokes. I hear your jokes, man, about his ensemble. He was even asked about it during his presser, and he said, hey, the jacket actually came from when I was at North Dakota State. It's the same color we wore at North Dakota State. So I already had the jacket. My wife just had to find me a shirt. So he didn't even have to go out and buy a jacket. How cool was that? Anyway, Carson Wentz's introductory press conference was, to me, the big takeaway from day two. You know, what was said, what could you glean from, you know, his reactions to some of the questions that were asked? Because I thought the media did a really good job of asking him questions that were pertinent, that needed to be answered. And I wanted to see his body language and how he went about, because I knew he's a buttoned up dude. He's politically correct. He's going to say the right things. So I knew he wasn't going to run away from anything, but I also wanted to see his body language in conjunction with what he was going to say in his response. So I was able to gauge all of those things. Heard from Ron Rivera a little bit. You know, he talked about the quarterback position and some of the things that they want to do and what this move means, what it doesn't mean. So I do think there were some things that we were able to take from what Ron said as well. We signed a guard today or yesterday, Andrew Norwell, a former Carolina Panther who has some history with Ron Rivera. And so that is interesting. We'll talk about, you know, his addition to the team, and we'll talk about the prospects of what this team can do moving forward in free agency. And I promised you a list. I don't have the list, but I did find something interesting in starting to compile that list, because there were 3 names on the list that I was going to make. I had gotten up to as many as 5 names on the list, and then 3 of them were signed. And so very quickly that list whittled down to 2. And then I started looking around and I made an interesting observation, and I'm going to bring that to you a little bit later on in the show. But of course, we're going to start today's show talking about the Carson Wentz press conference. It's his first time being exposed to the Washington media. It's our first look at Carson Wentz in Washington as a member of the Commanders. It was our first opportunity to hear him speak, kind of see where his head was at from the whole ordeal in Indy and being traded. Before we even start with what was said today, I want to go back to the day before when Carson Wentz first touched down in the nation's capital, and he met with Ron Rivera and company, took all of his photos for the press release and things of that nature. The photo that we've all seen of him in the Commander's Letterman jacket. There's a little bit of a little snippet of a video that, you know, the Washington Commanders production team does a really good job of putting together these little videos of things they want us to see. When we were winning games, Rivera would be in the locker room and they'd give us our victory speech, and it'd be like 50 seconds long, maybe a minute max. And they give us the good juicy parts. Nothing tops. Nobody dictates to us, right? Nobody dictates to us. Jack, where you at? Nothing beats that from last year, right? So everybody's doing this, where you either get a new coach and they get the coach walking in from his vehicle. That to me was dumb. But they get Carson Wentz coming out of the vehicle, walking into the facility at Redskins or whatever they call it now, Commanders, the command center. I don't know what the hell they call it these days. And Rivera's waiting for him at the door. And Rivera's like, hey, how you doing, Carson? How's your wife? How's the family? Making small talk. And then he asked him, it's crazy, right? I mean, how's it been? I mean, he's like, it's a whirlwind. It's been crazy, man. And Ron's like, I know it's been crazy. And, the last thing Ron says to him is, how's it feel to be somewhere where you're wanted? Pretty much like, hey, just know that you're wanted here. I said, look at Ron working the psychological angle here. Ron's a smart dude, man. Okay? A lot of you may have things to say about Ron, but one thing you can't say is that Ron isn't a smart guy. Ron knows what the hell is up. And I've said this. With Carson Wentz, it has nothing to do with the physical gifts and attributes. The guy's 6'5", 235, big arm, tremendous athlete. There's not one thing on the field he can't accomplish due to his physical attributes. He was blessed. Okay? Everything that Carson Wentz has that is a deficiency in his game comes from in between the ears. It's all mental. And the first thing Ron Rivera wanted to make sure Carson Wentz knew was that, hey, we want you. This is a place we wanted you to be. We went and got you because we believe in you and we think you're the answer to our quarterback question. You're somewhere where you're wanted now. It's safe. I said, look at Ron. Ron gets it. He understands what's going on here. So I thought that was a good start by Ron. So let's fast forward to the presser the very next day. Ron introduces Carson Wentz, and it was a great introduction. He comes out, says Happy Thanksgiving. That's the running joke. That will never die. And Ron's got a sense of humor too. I don't know if you've seen him when he's done, spots on national syndications. He's got a sense of humor. So I wasn't shocked that he busted out the Happy Thanksgiving. Got a few laughs and chuckles off of that. And soon thereafter, Carson Wentz is introduced, and he comes up and he talks about how crazy it's been. He did not expect to be traded from Indianapolis, and things happen. But I've said this. I truly do believe this. And maybe it's the optimist's way of explaining things away. And that may be true. But I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. And Wentz said the exact same thing. Like, look, I didn't expect to be here. I thought when I went to Indianapolis, it was for the long haul. And it happened to be for a year. And someone brought it, up that, hey, dude, this is your third team in 3 years. I've talked about that with Carson Wentz. Third team in 3 years. What's different here this time around? Because obviously it didn't work in Philadelphia and it didn't work in Indianapolis after a year. So what's different here in Washington? And he's like, look, I can't really tell you what happened in Indy that, other than, and he literally went into specifics about, look, we didn't finish the season well, and I didn't play well in particular down the stretch in those final 2 games. And it was a disappointing finish to the season, but I think in his mind, he was thinking it still didn't warrant me being traded and me, essentially being jettisoned from the organization. But that's what they wanted to do, and like I said, I thought that the media members, they came on, their A game. They fired the questions that needed to be asked. They didn't tiptoe around anything. They was like, look, your GM, Chris Ballard, was very critical, hypercritical of you, and said, look, all of that criticism was warranted. And Wentz was like, look, a lot of that stuff is true, and some of it isn't. And he's like, if we as players tried to combat all of the rumors that were out there, we'd run out of things to say. It's just too much. We get criticized for a lot of things, and some of the stuff is true, some of it isn't. At the end of the day, they decided to go in a different direction. And, I was in my backyard. I got the phone call from Chris Ballard that, I was being traded, and here we are. He's like, it happened so fast. He said, one thing's for sure, I'm excited about the opportunity. I can tell you this right now. Knowing Carson Wentz's background, heavily religious. We've talked about this already. Terry McLaurin is heavily religious. I think those two are going to get along like two peas in a pod. I really, truly do. And I think that will be the beginning of what forms into a beautiful relationship, because they're from similar backgrounds, I believe. Terry's from, Indianapolis. Carson Wentz is from North Dakota. So, I mean, I don't think that, they're not one and the same, but I don't know if they're that dissimilar in terms of, those places on the map in the U.S., how they move in those spots. Heavy background, religious backgrounds for both of them. I think that this is going to be the best receiver Carson Wentz has ever been paired with in his career. And this is going to be by far and away the best quarterback Terry's ever been paired with in his career. And I think they're going to take to each other very, very well. And he talked about Terry McLaurin, even though he didn't get the specifics of the first game correct. Terry didn't take a slant 80 yards. Terry went over the top on their ass. Should have went over the top twice, but Case Keenum overthrew him the second time. But he remembers Terry, first game. He remembers Chase Young bagging him in that first game. And that was Chase's first career game in the NFL, got his first career sack against Carson Wentz. And he's like, yeah, guys have reached out to me already, and I'm looking forward to, getting with these receivers and, kind of working with these guys in OTAs and things of that nature, and kind of getting this thing going. He talked about his relationship with Scott Turner. Obviously he hadn't met any of these guys, but he said that was one of the first people he talked to. They kind of sat down, started to hammer some things out. I think it's going to be a really good relationship. He talked about his game, and he said, look, the thing that you realize as you play this game is you evolve. The game is constantly evolving, and you have to do the same as a quarterback. You have to continually get better, 1% every single day. And he's like, some of the things that I've learned over the years is that you just got to know when sometimes, when to slide, when to extend the play, when to just throw it away. So, these are things that this is a battle that I will have for the remainder of my career. This is something that I always wrestle with internally. But, I acknowledge that, there's a time and a place for everything. So you see the growth, you hear the growth, he's excited for the opportunity. He's excited to be back in the NFC East. I'm excited for the opportunity for him, but I'm still going to reserve, judgment on this. I can tell you this: I'm a lot more excited about this than I was Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. Okay, I can tell you that without a doubt. I was not moved at all by Ryan Fitzpatrick being signed here. I was not moved at all when we had Alex Smith at quarterback. I was not all that thrilled about Dwayne Haskins when we drafted him. I was a lot more optimistic going into 2020 than I was in 2019 when we drafted Dwayne Haskins. I was not happy about that. So I can tell you this is the most excited I've been for a quarterback in Washington in quite some time, probably since the last year of Kirk. And that's not saying much, because all that means is that we've had nothing at quarterback to get excited about. So the bar isn't set very high. I'm still somewhat skeptical of Carson Wentz, and just listening to him speak isn't going to change my mind any. Words are words. Action and actions are exactly that. And actions speak way louder than words. So you can sit. I've been duped many a times, because as a fan, you want to believe. So I've been duped many a time by listening to. I remember Greg Manusky getting me excited when he got the defensive coordinator job, talking about, coming downhill, cracking skulls, and striking iron. And then after that, week after week, having to listen to him talk about miscommunications And if we just took out the 172-yard run they had, it actually wasn't that bad of a defensive performance. So I know better than to fall for the old banana in the tailpipe of a guy getting me hyped because he said some words that made sense. However, I will also acknowledge that you can tell that Carson Wentz gets it. He wouldn't go as far as to say that this is his last chance. And, you know, the reporter that asked the question sort of insinuated like, bro, this might actually be your last chance to be the unquestioned starter. He didn't say those words. He didn't say that exact thing, but he was like, hey, do you acknowledge that, you know, the third team in 3 years, like that this, you're at a crossroads. That's what he said in your career here, which that's a nice way of saying, bro, this is it. You don't make it this time around, you're a career backup, my friend. And Wentz was like, I don't get caught up in all of that. And I don't look at it that way. I just want to come out here and play good ball. And you know what? Maybe that's the best way to approach this if you're Carson Wentz. Not to put that extra undue pressure on yourself of, hey, if this shit doesn't work, Carson, it's over. You know, just go out and say, you know what? Just go out and play ball. You know, play the best brand of ball that I know how, and we'll let the chips fall where they may, and we'll see what happens after that. So that wasn't a bad approach. That wasn't a bad way to you know, answer that question. I can just tell you this. I left the presser feeling slightly better, but I'm still skeptical about this move, about everything that we hope to gain from this move. I told you, I was never moved by the draft picks that we may be potentially giving up, that 3 turning into a 2, the 3 this year. Yeah, it'll hurt in the moment when the draft comes and you see some players available and you know you don't have that 3rd round pick. Yeah, it'll suck then, right? It'll suck in the 2nd round if there's a player that we really like and he's available at 42, 43. He comes off the board at 44 and we're back there at 47. Yeah, that'll suck, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not worried about the compensation that they gave up to get him. I'm not worried about the cap space that we spent. And oh my God, it hamstrung us. It handcuffed us. We had to release Eric Flowers, and we had to release Landon Collins, and we had to release, you know, Matt Ioannidis. That stuff doesn't move me. I'm not dissuaded because of any of that. Because again, all of that is worth it to take a massive swing at the quarterback position to see if you can't get this thing right. So I don't worry about any of that. I just worry about the fact that once again, we could not get this right and be right back in this position again next year with no guarantees. Because again, Carson Wentz has proven, even at his worst, we're still a 7-8 win team. He's not going to come in here and we're going to bottom out and win 3 games. That's not Ron Rivera. That's not Taylor Heineke. Even showed us last year. He's not about winning three or 4 games. Wentz is definitely not going to win 3 or 4 games. So it really doesn't matter what happens. You're going to find yourself in the middle of the pack and you're going to have to trade up. And again, if Wentz plays 70% of the snaps during the regular season, you don't have a 2nd round pick. You really don't want to have to give up, you know, future draft picks, but that's what you're going to have to do if he doesn't work out. I'm more concerned about that and the ramifications of him not working, because Ron and his group pretty much stuck their neck out on the line for this one. If this blows up in their face, the fan base will never let them live this down. And I don't think heads will roll, but they'll be close to rolling. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want that for Ron, because I like Ron. And probably more so than most of you out there. I like Ron a lot. And I think that any coach that came into this situation was going to struggle, because this organization was in a bad spot when Ron took over. Our roster was garbage. The culture was horrible and at an all-time low. And it was a lot wrong. The name was about to be changed, and Ron didn't even know that when he took the job. That, you know, 4 months later, 5 months later, he'd be intertwined in a name controversy a name was going to be switched, and he was going to have to deal with that. And then he was going to get cancer. Like, there was so much that happened, and I think a lot of this shit Ron did not sign up for. I don't think he had any idea of what he was getting himself into. None whatsoever. I guarantee you, if Ron had it to do over again, he would have not taken this job. I can't confirm nor deny that, but I feel pretty confident saying that Ron, there have been plenty of times Ron has been asked, is this a little bit more than what you bargained for? Or would you rather be just talking about football and nothing else? And Ron's response is always a resounding yes. Like, this is a lot more than I thought I was getting myself into. I'm definitely in way over my head, which is why he had to go and turn over the whole front office. He's like, I can't do this shit by myself. And I think he looks at a lot of the issues and he tried his best, his damnedest to campaign this offseason. But there's a stigma out there. There's a stench that comes from this organization. And even Ron, being the well-respected, coach that he is, that has a rep that precedes him, even that wasn't good enough to get people, quarterbacks, things of that nature, to want to come here. So it's a lot of work, and it would have been tough for anybody to be here. But I think Ron's doing the best he can with the circumstances being what they are, and this is a big move for him. If this shit doesn't work, he's a lot closer to the door than ever before. A lot of people think he's on a hot seat this season if he doesn't win. I think this move puts him in that position. Had he not done this, then maybe you could, and they draft the quarterback, maybe you could justify, hey, the young fella needs some time, yada yada yada. But you go out, you swing for the fences with Carson Wentz. He comes in here and he's mediocre at best. That's going to really put Ron in a tough spot moving forward. The clock will definitely probably be ticking at that point. I don't know if you can say definitely and probably in the same sentence. The clock will probably be ticking at that point if it didn't work out with Carson Wentz. That meant you wasted essentially $30 million. You're probably going to fork over a 2, and you're back at square one. So, Ron, let's talk about some things that we definitely learned from this presser. The first thing is that Ron is definitively killing any conversation about a competition. I told you guys this before this even took place. There's no competition this year. Okay. Carson Wentz was traded to be QB1. I don't give a shit what Taylor Heinicke does in practice. As a matter of fact, Taylor Heinicke should look sharper than Carson Wentz at practice. He practically knows the entire playbook front to back. Okay. He's been with Scott Turner for long enough to know exactly what is being asked of him in this offense. So Carson Wentz coming in here, learning a whole new system with a bunch of players he's never played with before. It's going to be a bit of a transition period in the offseason. So I expect practice to be rough at times. Meanwhile, Heinicke should be out there stroking it. I wouldn't be shocked if he looks 10 times better than Carson Wentz. It doesn't matter. Remember last offseason, Heinicke looked better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. And it was never in question, even though there was a competition. So there's no competition. And Ron stated as much in that introductory press conference when he was introducing Carson Wentz. He said, this is our QB1, as you guys like to say, meaning that he's our unquestioned starter. There is no competition. There is no camp battle. This is the guy. We traded for him. We ate his $30 million, or 28 to be exact, $1 million cap hit. This is our guy. We gave up draft capital for him. We hoped we just solved our quarterback conundrum with Carson Wentz. So that's number one. There is no competition. There is no debate. This is QB1. Ron also said something that I found interesting. I don't believe him. But then again, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point. And I told you, I wouldn't be shocked if they're still entertaining it. And to me, Ron should say this. It's the right thing to say, even if it's definitely not happening. And Ron said, this doesn't preclude us from taking a quarterback or doing anything. This move here to get Carson Wentz isn't going to stop us from doing anything. That includes quarterback. I don't believe you. I need more people. Okay? I don't believe you. I need more people. I think this does preclude you from taking a quarterback at 11. I think this does preclude you from taking a quarterback at all in the 2022 NFL draft, as a matter of fact. That said, Ron shouldn't say that they're not taking a quarterback because that lowers the value of the pick. You want teams to think that, hey, this is a spot where I could take a quarterback. You could take this pick off my hands and come get this guy, or I could take him myself. So you don't want to devalue the pick by saying and pigeonholing yourself and saying you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. Every option should be available. I told you my new favorite phrase for the draft this year is BOA, best option available. And that means trade is well within range and within reason at 11, as well as standing pat and taking the best option available at that selection. Could be a wide receiver, could be a guard, could be a corner, could be an edge rusher, could be whatever, linebacker, safety. So I think saying that makes a ton of sense. I don't believe him for a number of reasons. I've already laid them out. The most notably being, this is Carson Wentz we're dealing with. He has a track record and a history of not dealing well with a quarterback, perceived or not perceived, backing him up, looking to take his job. It didn't go well with Nicholas Foles. It didn't go well with Jalen Hurts. He's not threatened by Taylor Heineke, nor should he be. You want to keep it that way. So I don't think they're taking a quarterback. I said that from the minute they traded for him. I still firmly believe that. We'll see if that changes when we get to late April and Washington is on the clock at 11 and no quarterbacks have been selected in the draft yet. That said, another takeaway from this presser was that Carson Wentz is, in fact, going to be donning the number 11. That was a conversation that I brought up very briefly. It's not that big of a deal, but I told you numbers matter to guys. That was his number in college. That was his number with the Eagles. He could not get it with the Colts because it was already the property of Michael Pittman, who said he wasn't giving it up. And so Wentz was like, cool, no worries. I'll just take 2. 1 + 1 is 2. So he took 2. But now he's got the double sticks back. And he was really happy about it. He's like, I'm back in 11 where I belong. I'm comfortable. That feels good. So it matters. Guys try to downplay the jersey thing like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll just get this number. It matters, okay? Why did Julio Jones select 2 with the Tennessee Titans? Because 11 was already taken. A.J. Brown was already wearing 11. He didn't want to take 11 from A.J. Brown. He's like, yo, that's your number. A.J. Brown wears 11 because of Julio Jones. So what did Julio Jones do? He went and got 2. Why? Because 1 + 1 is 2. Guys, think about this kind of stuff. So he's going to feel really good being back in 11, which means Cam Sims is no longer 11. And I'm thinking Cam Sims was technically not under contract. So he lost the right to number 11. And when Wentz got signed, they just gave him 11. I don't think this was hey, Cam Sims and Carson Wentz have to work something out where, Sims has to come up off the jersey. I just think it was an available number because Cam Sims wasn't technically a member of the Washington Commanders until they signed him. So I want to know where Cam Sims is going to go, if he's going to stay in the teens or is he going to go back to the 80s. He was 89 before. Again, this is all ancillary stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But this is shit we like to talk about. It's good to see Wentz get his number and be back in number 11. So it's going to be an interesting offseason. Everything in this offseason is going to matter now. Even OTAs and the little shit that we shouldn't care about, those things are going to matter because we got a brand new quarterback trying to gel and mesh with a new group of receivers and guys he's never played with before. Speaking of guys never playing with one another before, the offensive line, which for the last 2 or 3 years had some serious continuity. We were pretty much, we would add maybe a piece here, a piece there, but for the most part, the line was pretty much solid, rock solid. You knew what you were getting. Last year was the first year where we saw wholesale changes because we had a new starting left tackle, we had a new starting right tackle, and we had a new starting. We had a that was it. And we had a new left guard. They traded for Eric Flowers, so we had a new starting left guard as well. So there was a lot of changes on the offensive line. 3 out of the 5 positions on the offensive line were up for grabs, and we filled them. And this year, we're going to have more changes. Both guard positions are occupied or vacant, I should say. And you just filled one. Washington signs their first non-Washington Commander player in free agency. So all of the other moves that they've made this offseason have been to retain guys, bring them back. Bobby McCain, J.D. McKissick, Charles Leno Jr., Troy Apke, Joey Sly. These are all guys that were here last year that they've brought back. They haven't done anything with bringing a guy from the outside in to this point in free agency. Andrew Norwell is the first of that kind this offseason. Don't know the parameters of the deal, don't know the length of it, but you talk to Jaguars fans, good riddance. Essentially we swapped out Sheriff for Norwell. That's a big upgrade and a big dub as far as they're concerned. You talk to Panthers fan, the dude was lights out and was a steal for them as an undrafted, guard that came in and lit it up for him. So Ron is probably banking on getting that guy, and he didn't know anything about the Jacksonville guy, but we'll see what happens. John Masco has worked with Andrew Norwell, obviously, in Carolina, and Ron is familiar with him. And, he's the same age as Brandon Sheriff. They're both 30 years old, so it's not like you're trading one for the other in terms of age. Like, Norwell is the exact same age. He's actually 2 months 2 months younger or older, than Brandon Sheriff. That's it. His birthday is in October. Sheriff's birthday is in December. So they'll both, turn 31 during the season. But I look at it as, we just replaced a guard. And he's the left guard is Andrew Norwell, whereas Brandon Sheriff was a right guard. But I'm thinking the offensive line from left to right is going to look like this. Charles Leno Jr. at left tackle, Andrew Norwell at left guard, Chase Roullier at center. Right guard is going to be Sadiq Charles, and then right tackle is going to be what is my guy's name from Texas? Why am I blanking on him? Sam Cosmi. So that's the offensive line to me from left to right. And all of those guys are already on the roster. So, and the reason I think that it's Sadiq Charles at guard and not Wes Schweitzer is because of the flexibility that Wes Schweitzer provides you as a backup. He can play both guards and center. That kind of flexibility is invaluable. You don't get it with Sadiq Charles, who can play 4 out of the 5 offensive line spots, both tackle and both guard spots. But we saw him at tackle last year. We don't want him anywhere near our tackle position. Let's be honest with one another. I'm comfortable with him being at guard. I am not comfortable with Sadiq Charles being out there taking snaps, meaningful snaps at tackle. So really, the extent of Sadiq Charles's, offensive line flexibility extends to just both guard spots. Whereas with Wes Schweitzer, you can play both guard spots and center. And there's just this comfort level with Wes Schweitzer, over the years. That 3-year, $13 million deal we signed him to, that's some of the best value, man. We got some really good value out of that first offseason when Ron got here. Got some good value out of those, signees. Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissick and Charles Cornelius Lucas and Wes Schweitzer. I mean, we got some good mileage out of that group of guys. There were a lot of mid-level, low-level signings that we weren't excited about, and they turned out to be some really good players. And Wes Schweitzer has been among the most consistent and best of that group. So I talked about needing to add a offensive lineman or two, particularly inside on the interior, especially after we lost Flowers. They bring in Andrew Norwell, and he's a much better run blocker than Eric Flowers ever was. Where Eric Flowers, I think, might be a better player is in the pass blocking department. I think Andrew Norwell at times, struggles there, which is where you see some of the penalties he gets, holding penalties and things of that nature. But all in all, you're swapping out guards there, and I think you're going to insert Sadiq Charles into the lineup, and you're going to keep it pushing. So my last thing, and then we're going to get to your comments. We talked about positions that we need to attack in free agency. And I talked specifically about making a list of free agents that were available that I thought we could go after. And I had a list of guys that I was intrigued by, and I was starting to compile a list, and obviously some players have been signed that would have made some sense. And there's still some guys out there that I am intrigued by, but at the end of the day, I think it's interesting. So one of the things we've done this offseason is we've re-signed a lot of our own guys, right? And we still got more work to do in that department. Terry needs to get paid. I think they need to extend Cole Holcomb as well. Don't want to get into a situation where he becomes a free agent. If you really like him, you need to lock him up. He's in that same boat with Terry. He was not a first-round pick in that 2019 draft. I think you need to go ahead and lock him up. We'll see what they decide to do. But, and maybe, again, a lot of this stuff is probably going to take place when that Landon Collins deal comes into effect and they free up $11 million and add that to their salary cap. That will put them in a much more comfortable position to start making moves like re-signing Terry and re-signing Cole Holcomb, and also, getting everything else in order, right? But I started making that list and I started looking at positions, and what struck me is that we've been doing a lot of work trying to bring our guys back. Like, they lost Ricky Seals-Jones to the Giants. I'm pretty sure you guys saw that. They tried to bring Ricky Seals-Jones back. They offered him a contract, but it was the opportunity to be the starter, the guy in New York, that lured him away. They don't have a starting tight end there. He's right now penciled in as their starting tight end. They moved on from Kyle Rudolph. They moved on from Evan Ingram. They don't have a guy at tight end. He's that guy right now. So that opportunity alone was intriguing enough for him to say, hey, I appreciate what y'all did for me. Y'all kind of helped put me on the map, but this is an opportunity I can't pass up. Y'all still got a starting tight end in Logan Thomas. So if he's healthy, I'm relegated to number 2 duty. I can go to New York, be the number 1 guy. So I'm going to take that opportunity. We'll see what happens. But they wanted him back. They wanted Tim Settle back. But, wasn't in the cards. And I think he looked at it similar to the way Ricky Seals-Jones looked at it and said, I just want a bigger role. I want more opportunities to play. I'm not going to get that playing behind Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to go to Buffalo, where I feel like I'm going to get more opportunities. They just moved on from Harrison Phillips, one of their starting defensive tackles. I think I'm going to get a lot of run in Buffalo. So I'm going to go there. Try my hand at that. So they wanted a lot of their guys back. And I'm looking at two guys in particular. Haven't been signed, and they're a part of this clearance rack that I've been talking about, that nobody's rushing to get to these dudes. You know, eventually somebody will get to Cornelius Lucas. Eventually. But he's not first up on the list of players that you make a beeline to get to. He's going to be there. So he's all the way at the back of the store. He's in multiple sizes. You can get him in a medium. They don't have any more larges. All right, but you can get him in a medium. They got a few extra larges, and they got one XXX. So it's back there on the clearance rack, and you can get it. I'm not opposed to bringing back Cornelius Lucas. I don't know about y'all, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, we've been bringing back all these dudes. I'm cool with bringing back Cornelius Lucas as our swing tackle. I feel really good about Cole Luke when somebody goes down and he has to step in, whether it's right or left. I feel good with him being out there. I thought somebody would have already paid him a 3-year, $30 million deal already, but it hasn't happened. So that means that he may be able to come back to Washington. Or is that something that you guys would be interested in doing? I know I'm definitely down for the cause. And you know what I was thinking? And it didn't dawn on me until I started looking and I started compiling the list, because everybody wants to make the direct correlation to guys that played for Ron in Carolina. So when you think about a corner, you say, hey, we got to go get Dante Jackson. He played for Ron in Carolina. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what we need. Dante Jackson's cool. He's young. He's talented. He's athletic. There's a lot to like about Dante Jackson. But that's not what we need. We could use another corner, but that's not what we need. We need a nickel. We need somebody that can play inside. I don't know if Dante Jackson's that guy. He could be. I don't know if he's ever tried in the league to play inside as a nickel. A lot of his work was done outside on the boundary. So I don't know if he's ever played nickel in his life, going back to his college days. That said, I was looking at the list of corners that are available, and lo and behold, I see Danny Johnson on the list. And I'm like, I remember there was a stretch there where we were banged up at corner and Danny had to fill in at the nickel. And the game that comes to mind, he was playing his ass off against Green Bay. So much so that I remember the first game Danny played well in. And Ron Rivera was asked, hey, man, Danny played really well. You think you got to make some room for him? And Ron was like, no. He played well. His number was called. He did what he had to do. No. I was like, well, shit. Okay. Then it happened again. And that's when we went to Green Bay. And this was at a point in the season where Green Bay was scoring on teams. And then we went there and we pretty much shut their offense down. Moved the football up and down the field against their defense. And we just couldn't put it in the damn end zone. But if you recall, they scored on the opening possession of the game. And it took them on a 4th down conversion to score, where Rodgers had to roll out. He outflanked the contain on that side, throws back across his body to Devontae Adams, who sneaks across and gets into the end zone. We had them dead to rights on that 4th down and let them off the hook. They scored a touchdown. And then they only scored, I think, one other touchdown in that game, if I'm not mistaken. And that was off of the Taylor Heineke fumble to start the second half. He gets hit, ball comes out, they recover, and like one play later, there's a touchdown. But we really played well defensively. That was the first game where I started to say, maybe the defense is turning shit around. Danny Johnson was awesome in that game, and he played well in several other games. Inside. I think he was good against the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken. And so I said all of that to say this. I'd love to try Danny Johnson out in a nickel at full time. Like, give him an opportunity. Let's see what he can do. I'd love to see what Danny Johnson has. So, core special teamer, gives you a little bit of ability there as a punt returner. Remember, in a pinch, he can, field punts if need be. I don't know what the status is of DeAndre Carter. I haven't heard anything about him, being back on the roster. For all I know, he signed a 2-year deal last year, and he's already on the team. But in my mind, I'm thinking he signed a little 1-year deal last year, and he's no longer on the roster right now. So I'd love to just bring him back because he adds value in all those other areas, but I think he could actually play nickel. Again, we're not going to be out here, signing 15 guys in free agency. That's not the way we're set up right now. So I'm thinking just bring back a couple more of your own dudes, and there may be one guy like an Austin Hooper out there at the tight end position. I wouldn't even try to go after Austin Hooper. I'd be more inclined to go after a dude like Gerald Everett. Not going to cost you a lot of money. That was another guy that was on my list after OJ Howard. I go after a guy like Gerald Everett. Down year in Seattle last year. Super athletic. Can run, can make some things happen. And because he didn't have a big year in Seattle, I think there's a lot of savings from Austin Hooper to a Gerald Everett. I think there is a aspect to signing him that you're going to save a lot of money that is very intriguing to me. Won't take a lot. So that's the kind of guy I'm looking for. And I think the rest, you just attack in the draft. You can get a tight end, and I know they're interested because they tried to re-sign Ricky Seals-Jones. So I know they're interested and they're in the tight end market. And there are plenty of guys available. You just gotta choose wisely. They could also say, hey, it's a lot of guys available in the draft, and they wouldn't be wrong there either. So we'll see what they decide to do. But 2 guys in particular, Cornelius Lucas and Danny Johnson, I would not be opposed to bringing either of them back. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Carlton Pagano Jackson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy CPJ writes, much love, Lou. Late night work, I see. You know how it is sometimes. March Madness, man, got the kids sideways. I was up there watching that. As a matter of fact, after my podcast, there was a game that was on. I think it was San Francisco versus who the hell were they playing? I can't remember who they were playing, but shit was in overtime, the third overtime game of day number 1 of the tournament. And I caught the back end of that game. So yeah, man, tournament was kicking some ass, kind of, push some things back, but here we are. He says, I'm on the West Coast time, so I appreciate you, my guy. I thought I missed it. What's crazy is I don't usually take into consideration that there are a lot of you who are on the left coast. And so when I go at my normal, before it used to be 8:30, it'd be 5:30 on your time. So that's tough. Some of y'all are still at work, or you're still getting through traffic, or you just getting in the house. And the first thing when you get home, you're not looking to jump on a stream. You're trying to get in, get settled, eat something, maybe take a bath, whatever the case may be. And so 9:30 might be a little bit more appealing to some of y'all on the left coast, but it's still 6:30. This is right up your alley. 1 o'clock is 10 o'clock your time. It's perfect for y'all. So I don't even take that into consideration a lot of times, because I was thinking, well, it's late. I don't think a lot of people are going to be up, so I probably shouldn't do this stream. But then, I had a couple people be like, nah, just do it. We here. We up. We good. Just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, I really want to knock it out. So maybe I will do it. And sure enough, I didn't think I'd have 300 people in here this late, but much love, CPJ, man. Really appreciate you, and thank you for joining me. Really do appreciate you. Afro Cat 2136. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Afro Cat writes, sup, little 20 piece for the twins. I appreciate that. They appreciate it. My daughter has a cold and it's kicking her ass. And clearly she gave it to me. So it's, trying to kick my ass. I'm good though. But you always hate when the little ones have a cold and she's so congested, so trust me, they appreciate the love. Says free agency for us has changed dramatically. Ron does his due diligence and patiently plucks guys and plugs them into specific roles. I dig it. Look forward to drafting some dogs. It's going to be an interesting draft for sure because of the limited resources that we have right now. So this is something I needed to do. I keep saying I'm going to do it. I'm going to just go ahead and do it right now. And that's find out how many draft picks we actually have because we didn't get any compensatory picks this year. We will get some next year, for losing Sheriff and some of these guys that will ultimately sign elsewhere. Tim Settle signing with the Bills. More likely than not, Landon Collins will land somewhere on his feet. So will Matt Ioannidis. More likely than not, so will Eric Flowers. We're going to end up with some compensatory picks next year, for sure. Anyway, let's see how many draft picks does Washington have in 2022. Let's see. So right now we have 6 picks, 11th overall in the first round, 47. Remember, we moved back 5 spots. We were the 42nd pick, but in that Carson Wentz deal, we swapped with the Colts. So they come up 5 spots to 42. We moved back 5 spots to 47. We have no 3rd round pick due to the Carson Wentz trade. We have a 4th round pick, 112th overall. We have no 5th round pick because we traded with Philadelphia so we could get Cameron Cheeseman. Remember, we traded with Philadelphia and got all those picks and backloaded our draft with, we had 3 7s, like 2 6s and a 5, and Cam Cheeseman was that 5. So we got no 5th round pick. We got a 6th and 2 7s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. That's not a lot of draft capital, folks. So what that means specifically is that we got to be strategic in how we move in the draft. And again, that could mean trading back, picking up more picks, taking that 6, multiplying it and making it 8 or 9, moving back multiple times, and turning that 6 into 9 or 10. Or it could just be take your 6 and move on. And anytime you have a draft less than 7 picks, I call it a bread, egg, cheese, milk draft, meaning you got a specific set of items. You go in, you get out. You walk. You don't go past the cookies. You don't stop past the juice aisle. You don't stop and look at a couple of items off on the other side of the store. You go exactly to the dairy section. You get your eggs, you get your cheese, you go get your bread, you get your milk, and you get out of the store. So that's what kind of draft it might be for us, which is why I'm advocating figure out a couple of positions in free agency. If you can knock down tight end, knock it down. If you can knock down, corner, get a nickel, knock it down. Take some of that stuff off your plate. That's why getting J.D. McKissic back was important, because if you didn't, running back all of a sudden is now a need. It's not a need, it's a want. There's a difference between a need and a want. There are a lot of things that I want we don't necessarily need. I want an upgrade at defensive end behind our starters. That's a want. Do we need that? No, I want it. They're not looking at defensive end as something that they need to go out and get. That's not a high priority for them. I want to upgrade at wide receiver. with the re-signing of Cam Sims, is that a need? I don't know. If Cam Sims is not back, it's definitely a need. Now that he is back, not necessarily a need. Running back. I want a running back, but with J.D. McKissick back, and you got Jared Patterson, and you still got Williams hanging around, and you still got Antonio Gibson, is it a need or is it just a want? Sounds like a want to me, not much of a need. So again, you don't have to address everything, and they won't. But you put yourself in a much better spot if you pick off a few of these items in free agency and then go into the draft saying, all right, here are the things we have to come away with. We have to come away with a middle linebacker. That's not optional. Got to. Okay, go get it then. All right. Got to come away with another offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. Got to come away with a guard. Okay, go get it then. Got to come away with another safety. Okay, go get it then. Got to come away with another corner. Okay, go get it then. So we'll see what they decide to do and what they decide are the positions that they got to have. Or this is the best player available at this position at the time of our selection. We're just going to take them. We'll see. Free agency definitely changed drastically with the Carson Wentz move, but I think it changed drastically from a financial situation, but I don't know if they were going to be aggressive anyway. Let's see. Brendan McCloskey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Brendan, writes, late night Lou, love to see it. Appreciate you chopping it up with me and being here and being down for the kid this late. He says, if everything works out, we definitely are a 10-11 win team. Now, as a Nats fan, love to see Freeman out of our division so he can't torment us anymore. LOL. Keep up the great work, Lou. Well, we did go get Olsen from the Oakland A's. And so we'll see if he comes in and picks right up where Freddie left off at. But yeah, Freddie used to do y'all dirty. So I'm going to miss that for sure. If everything works out, you're right. This could be a 10-11 win team. And again, I don't know if you guys are paying attention to what's going on around us, because a lot of you guys as fans have tunnel vision and you only care about this team, which is fine. But if you look around at the landscape of the NFC conference, shit's getting a lot easier, okay? A lot of the heat and traffic is moving out towards the AFC, leaving a clear and identifiable path in the NFC if you can just stay relatively healthy and get quality quarterback play. So I'm looking around and I'm like, why not us? I mean, seriously, I'm optimistic, and I do this all the time, right? And I kid sometimes, like, why not us? But no, I'm serious right now. Why not us? I mean, Aaron Rodgers just lost his best receiver. Who knows what the Packers are going to do? I assume now they got 2 first-round picks. I assume one of those first-round picks will be to replace Davante Adams with a first-round receiver, something the Packers haven't done since the early 90s, drafting a first-round wide receiver. That said, what if that guy comes in and he stinks? Or he's not any good, or he's taking a while, and it happens. He may ultimately be a stud. I remember Davante Adams coming in. He was all right in his first year. He wasn't all that. He didn't start, having it click until like year 2 or 3. So I could see a situation where, they get a guy in that first year, him and Aaron Rodgers aren't on the same page yet. So I said all of that to say this. The Packers are not the same squad. Yeah, the Buccaneers got Tom Brady back, so they're a problem still. And so are the Packers because they got Aaron Rodgers. But those teams are drastically different. Gronk hasn't committed to coming back, but he's probably coming back to Tampa because Tom Brady came back. Those 2 teams are good. Seattle's no longer a threat. There's no more Russell Wilson. You look around at the rest of the conference, Who else is standing in the way? So, shit. If Carson Wentz could come in here and play some ball, stabilize the quarterback position, we stay relatively healthy, why the hell not us? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Thank you for the super chat, Brendan McCloskey. Condo P, my girl Condoleezza Perry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, we appreciate you, Lou, for all the hard work and time you put in for us. I appreciate you guys even more so. Even more so. The feeling is mutual and fully reciprocated. But again, if you guys aren't here, then this stream at 1, 2 in the morning is irrelevant. You see what I'm saying? So it goes both ways. I appreciate you guys for chopping it up with the kid, you know, especially if you're on the East Coast right now. You know, I really do appreciate you. So thank you so much, Condo P. Really do appreciate you. Johnny Boy 26. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Johnny Boy writes, no one is mentioning the weapons that Carson had in Indy. Every great QB had a great receiver or receiver core around him. Carson is going to light it up with the receiver core we have. The GOAT went to Tampa for a wide receiver core. So you're right about Carson Wentz never really having a super duper receiving core. Didn't have one in Philadelphia. Didn't have one in Indy. It wasn't table scraps in Indy. You know, some guys stepped up, but it was when you're throwing the football to Ashton Doolin, okay, shit's getting really interesting, right? So I get it. He did have Michael Pittman. Okay, he did have Michael Pittman, and he had a bevy of tight ends to get the football to, and he had one of the best receiving running backs in all of football in Nyheim Hines, which he'll inherit one of those here in Washington and J.D. McKissick. And then, of course, he had a dominant run game. So there were other attributes that kicked in to help offset the fact that there was no Parrish Campbell, and T.Y. Hilton was oft injured. And so the receiving core that he thought he was going to have, he didn't have, and he had to make do with what he had. That said, we got to be healthy in order to, you know, give him what he's never truly had, which is a top-notch receiving core. So if De'Ami Brown can step up, if Terry can continue to be Terry, and Curtis Samuel right now is the wild card, if he's healthy and he's able to really do what we brought him here to do, then it changes everything with our receivers. Truly does. So we'll see about that. But you're right. He hasn't really ever had a supporting cast. He's usually had to carry teams on his shoulders. Hopefully he doesn't have to do that here in Washington. Mr. Ron B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mr. Ron B writes, appreciate the night shift work. You know what it is, man. Appreciate y'all tuning in on the night shift. With the Kirk and Adams deals, I don't expect extensions for Captain Terry, Debo, Metcalf, or AJ until training camp at the earliest. Your thoughts? Yeah, that's about accurate. I can't speak for the other guys. I don't know what their team's cap situations are. I can only speak from our standpoint. And I know our cap situation isn't ideal, and you have to make sure that you have enough money to sign your draft picks. So as far as I'm concerned, they're going to make sure that they take care of everything that they need to take care of. And then they got the requisite money that has to be set aside for the draft picks. And then, like I said, you'll get that $11 million freed up once, you know, June 1 hits from Landon Collins. And then that's the money I think they start to do extensions with. So if you ask me, Terry's extension, I had told you guys this before we traded for Carson Wentz, that Terry's extension wasn't going to happen until the summertime anyway. Just like Jonathan Allen's extension didn't happen until like 2 weeks before camp. It's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood. And just for the record, I know a lot of you saw Devontae Adams' deal. It's 5 years, $141 million. For those of you keeping score at home, that's damn near 30 mil a year, right? That's quarterback money. So you're probably somewhere in the 27, million dollar range, $28 million a year range at 5 for 140. So that's some big money right there. That's not Terry's neighborhood. Terry doesn't live in that neighborhood. Okay. Terry doesn't even visit that neighborhood. So I know some of y'all was saying, "Oh man, what is this going to do to Terry's market?" That Terry isn't in Davante Adams's category. That's for the elite receivers. That's not where Terry's at. Terry's in the tier below that. Okay. So Terry can't even look at that money what Davante Adams just got, because that's next level. That's all pro money. And Terry ain't never been close to being anybody's all pro. That could change with better quarterbacking, right? But as of right now, Terry ain't never been close to being in anybody's all pro conversation. So you don't have to worry about Davante Adams' money affecting Terry's contract, because they're not one and the same. But I agree with you. Those deals, specifically Terry's, again, I can't speak for anybody else's financial situation. Generally, nobody wants to be first. So I could see these boys all waiting to see what happens. Like, for instance, I know the Titans, they just cut Julio Jones. Julio! And they designated him a post-June 1 cut so that they could reap the benefits of cutting him. Because right now, if they just cut him, they'd really save no money under the cap. But you designate it as a June 1 cut, and it frees up, specific amount of bread for them. So, they could be waiting on, that bread to come in to do their AJ extension, similar to where we are with ours, waiting for that money to come through where they try to get the Terry extension done. Somebody's got to be first. One of these dudes is going to have to step up, sign the deal, and kind of pop the top on this thing. And then I think everybody else will kind of fall into place. So we'll see what happens. But it's not happening until the summertime. I think you're spot on, Mr. Ron B. Plato Rail, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Plato Rail, writes, just got in here. Want to know your opinion on what the plan is moving forward after these cuts and re-signings. The plan is simple. The plan all along was to bring as many of the dudes as you could back that you felt like were added value to the team. Ron made it abundantly clear they were going to go after a lot of their own guys. They've done that. They brought back Charles Leno Jr. They brought back Bobby McCain. They brought back J.D. McKissick. Brought back Troy Apke. They brought back Joey Sly. And I'm not sure they're done in that department. I've talked about Danny Johnson, and I know they're interested in Danny Johnson coming back, and they should be. They brought back Cam Sims, and I know that they may be interested in bringing back Cornelius Lucas. So the goal was to bring back a lot of those dudes and get the quarterback position rectified, and they did that. So in their minds, that was the one position that was holding us back. And they're not wrong, because even with the shortcomings of the position and all the bullshit we dealt with injuries and COVID, we still went 7-10. Think about some of the games that were there for the taking prior to all of the nonsense going on with COVID and injuries really ravaging us late in the season. Think about some of those games that were there for the taking. Week 1, Chargers. Okay. How about the week 5 game against the Saints? About the following week after that against the Chiefs? How about the Broncos game? That was one of those ones you're like, come on, man, we can't effing lose to the Broncos, man. Seriously? That Packers game was there for the taking too. I mean, there's a lot of games in there where you look and you say, man, we had no business losing that game. If we had better quarterbacking, maybe we win that game. Even at the end of the season, the Eagles game, the second one, where Heineke throws that pick to seal the deal, very winnable football game. Eagles are fighting for their playoff lives. We are on life support. We got all kinds of injuries. We're still reeling from COVID, and we still almost beat those boys. And if we had just slightly better quarterback play, that's a win. So I look at the season and I look at their thought process. I don't love everything that they've done because, again, and they're not done, right? There's still plenty of offseason to go, plenty of opportunity for them to bring in other guys and to make decisions that will change the way that I feel about some of the things that they've done. But I told you I wanted change at certain positions, and I was afraid they were going to try to just go status quo and run it back. They just want to be healthy. I don't necessarily love that, but again, the roster isn't terrible when it's healthy. But I'm not going to sit here and do what I did last year in the offseason, which is build this roster up into, a top 10 roster in the league, because it's far from that. So I'm smart enough this year to know that last year's roster was exciting because we were coming off of a division. And I think that's what kind of amped us up. We were coming off of that division crown. We were smelling ourselves. And then we made those offseason moves, and it made us feel like, oh, shit, here we go. Here we go. This year is a much different tenor. You feel a lot different coming off of 7-10. It's amazing what a difference a year makes, because that 7-piece felt a whole hell of a lot different last year going into the offseason than the 7-piece we just got this year. So the plan was to get a quarterback. They did. Bring back a lot of these dudes that you feel like are a part of the solution and not the problem. They're in the process of doing that. And we'll see what they decide to do in the draft, what their priority. I think the next big thing that they're going to do is attack middle linebacker. I think that, honestly, if nothing else happens in free agency noteworthy, I think the first pick in the draft will be a linebacker. I think they really want to shore up the linebacker position. That's my guess right now. You guys have asked me numerous times, what are we going to do at 11? What are we going to do at 11? What are we going to do at 11? I've been swatting you away because I don't know. And there's still a lot of offseason left. And, a move here, a move there can alter the way that I view what they do in the draft. Already, just going out and getting Carson Wentz is already skewed the way that I look at the 11th pick, because before the Wentz deal, I didn't think that we were going to trade back. I just didn't like that scenario for us. Didn't make a ton of sense. Now with Wentz, and us giving up some draft capital, only having 6 picks in the draft, and then potentially having to give up a 2 next year, I think they're going to be looking to recomp some picks. I think they're going to be looking to see if they can't maybe pick up a 4th or a 5th by moving back once or twice in the draft, or picking up a 3rd that they don't any longer have. So that's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think right now middle linebacker would be the position that they target. I think Ron and Jack really want to get middle linebacker, because Ron made it abundantly clear that guy isn't on the roster. It's not Jamin Davis, and I don't think they feel like it's Cole Holcomb either. So thank you for the super chat, Plato Rail. Jack Curry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Jack writes, I think Wes Schweitzer is a mauler in the run game, or is that just me? No one talks about it, and I have Sadiq Charles play swing, not mad at the O-line move. I love me some Wes Schweitzer, man. I told you guys that. I've shown you Wes Schweitzer being a dog in the run game. At the end of the day, I think that Sadiq Charles is the guy that they give the nod to first. Not to say that he's going to lock down the right guard position, but I think they're going to give him the opportunity to be that guy first. What he does with it is on him, but if he can't get it done, they will not hesitate to slide Wes Schweitzer in there and keep it pushing. you're right about West being a dog in the run game. He is nasty. At times, I thought he was our nastiest offensive lineman because he was putting dudes' dick in the dirt and not giving a damn about it. Where he struggles at times, pass pro, moving his feet sometimes, but I love me some Wes Schweitzer, man. So I think we've got a good mixture up front. But if you don't bring back Cornelius Lucas, then you need a swing tackle. And I still think you need to add another guard to the mix. So we'll see what they do. All right. Let's see what we got. Adam, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Adam, writes, love me some late night Lou. I appreciate you for kicking it with the kid, man. It is late, so I appreciate you coming through. He says, I think they want Benjamin St-Juste to develop into a starting outside corner, then move Fuller inside to the slot. Again, that was the thought process last year for me, was that, oh, I know what they're doing here. Two big corners on the outside, William Jackson on one side, Benjamin St-Juste on the other side. Kick Kendall Fuller inside, which is where he was before he left us the first time. Oh, yeah, this shit's about to get real. That's not what they did last year. And even when they did try to put Kendall Fuller inside, he got cooked inside. So in my mind, I don't know if they're going to try that experiment again and run it back. And I'm a little nervous about Benjamin St-Juste after all the concussions last year. I'm not going to lie to you. So that's why I'm like, I wouldn't be shocked if they went out and got a Dante Jackson or somebody. Remember, you want depth. No more Torrey McTyer on this roster. No more. What was my guy Roberts that was on the team last year, and he had to play some real meaningful snaps for us down the stretch when we had COVID and injuries. So they definitely need some cornerback depth. But Dante Jackson isn't the kind of dude you sign for depth. He's going to get some quality money out there, I think. So I don't think that's the guy that's coming here. But you can bring back a Danny Johnson and you can go out there. I think the best route is to draft a guy, to be honest with you. But we'll see what they decide to do. Martin Matthews, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Double M writes, hey, Louie, I'm always talking about getting speedy wide receivers. Would you be opposed to them getting 2 wide receivers in the draft? Yeah, that's too much. That's overkill for a position where, if we keeping it a buck, we already got 5 receivers on the squad. Now, again, Dax Milne's position on the team is not etched in stone. He does not have to make this team. That was a 7th round pick they spent on him. That's not a huge investment. So it's 5. I say 5 tentatively, but it's 4 for sure. It's 4 dudes are making this team. And again, Cam Sims doesn't have to make this team at $2 million, right? He doesn't have to. But they like him a lot. Okay. And don't forget this. He's a core special teamer, one of the best special teamers on the team. He's probably our second best special teamer after Troy Apke. So there's a lot that Cam Sims brings to the table. And he blocks in the run game. So I know they love Cam Sims. So that's 4 receivers. It's Terry, it's Curtis, it's Diami, and it's Cam Sims at a bare minimum. That's 4. I think they like Dax Milne, and they drafted him to be the replacement for Adam Humphries, and I think they have every intention of putting him in the slot and letting him work. So that's 5 receivers, if you ask me. Drafting 2 more receivers and making it a grand total of 7 is way too much. It's overkill. You could be spending those resources at another position. 1 is fine. 1 is fine. I don't think 2 is something that you need to do. I think you could spend 1 on a receiver and then 1 elsewhere. So 2 might be overkill. All right. Jason Fios, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Jason Fios, writes, late night Lou, the true MVP. Nah, y'all the real MVPs. Told y'all that already. Again, I could be here talking to myself this late at night, but I'm not. So y'all the real MVPs. He said, We got to trade back unless a top 10 talent falls to 11. How far is too far to trade down? Green Bay may want to move up to get the best wide receiver. Your thoughts? So these are all things you have to take into consideration, right? For me, there's gonna be some spillage. There's gonna be some spillage at 11. Even though the quarterbacks aren't going to be infiltrating the top 10, which usually helps promote spillage, there's going to be a guy that in a normal year, where there's not as many talented players, might end up getting taken in the first, 7, 8 picks. That's going to fall to 11. 11, you usually can guarantee yourself one or two guys are going to fall out of the top 10 that belonged in the top 10. So, and we're right there. It's not like we're 14th or 15th. And we, like last year, we had to hope for some spillage all the way back to 19. It's a long way to hope that spillage reaches you. We had 11. Like, it ain't hard to get some spillage to hit you at 11. So, I think we're going to be fine. Now, how far is too far to trade back? I've already laid this out for you. There's no way to quantify that right now. They'll be able to quantify that when they get to the draft and they have their grades on these players. And again, when you're at a specific pick, you make a list of guys and a number of them that fit the pick that you're at. So for Washington, they might make a list of 11 guys because guess what? One of those 11 guys are going to be there. But, they could easily say, okay, look, we're not going to have a chance to draft Aiden Hutchinson. We're not going to have a chance to draft Kayvon Thibodeau. Probably not going to have a chance to draft Sauce Gardner. We're not going to get our hands on any of those tackles, and we frankly don't need any of those tackles. The guy from NC State or Evan Neal from Alabama. These are all guys that are going to go in the top 10 that won't be available at 11. So let's just start the amount of guys that we'll put on our little short list of players that we'll be willing to take at 11. Let's make that a list of 7 guys, not 11, because we can already account for 4 picks in the top 10 that won't be there at 11 that we know are coming off the board. And so you make a list of 7 dudes. One of them 7 they're bound to be there because you didn't add Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau or Evan Neal or the tackle from NC State. You didn't add any of those guys on your list because they're not going to be there. You didn't even waste your time. So you make that list, but what if you get to 11 and the list of 7 guys that you made, there's still 5 of those dudes available? At that point, you say to yourself, well, shit, we trade back 4 spots. One of those guys that we made the list of at 11, he will still be there at 15. 15 is not too far to trade back then. You gotta play that game. Like, if I move back to 17 and I only liked 3 guys, when I got to 11, there were only 3 guys that I thought were worthy of the 11th pick. And there was only 3 guys that I think like, let's say you're at 11, somebody calls you from 18, at the 18th pick, and they want to come up to 11. And by the time you get to 11, there are only 5 players that you have a first round grade on left in the entire first round. 5, that's it. Which probably wouldn't happen, but this is a hypothetical. So you only got 5 dudes that are worthy of a first round pick in your mind. You move back to 18, all 5 of those guys could conceivably be gone. Is it worth it to trade back to 18, miss out on a guy that you think is worthy of a first round pick, worthy of the 11th pick, worthy of taking as a potential blue chipper, to pick up more draft picks? Or are you more concerned with getting the most talented player you possibly could get, adding him to your roster and moving on that way? It's hard to say how far is too far back right now. And really, it's up to them to decide. Lorenzo Simpson. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Zoe writes, I watched some Wentz to feel better, and I noticed he loves big body targets. We need to get another. Sims and Thomas isn't enough. I've talked about the lack of big targets around here in Washington. It's a problem, I think. We've addressed the speed on the team offensively, with McKissick and Gibson and Terry and Samuel and Diami. We got speed. We got dudes that can run now, So, and even Deandre Carter added an element of speed if he's back, if he's not back. But we had enough speed. Now we need size. When Logan Thomas went down, Ricky Seals stepped in. He gave us some size, but it wasn't the same. Ricky Seals isn't Logan Thomas. So I think that it'd be great to get Carson some more size. I think you're right about him loving throwing the bigger targets. One of his favorite targets in Indy was Mo Alley Cox. Why? Because Mo Alley Cox was a big 6'3", 6'4" tight end with some hops, basketball background that would go up and make plays for him. He loved throwing to Michael Pittman. Why? Because Michael Pittman's 6'4", and he'll go up and make plays for him. So I think that's something that they need to entertain. But again, we'll see what they decide to do. DC Fan 88, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy DC Fan 88 writes, appreciate you, Lou. I'm in the gym enjoying your opinions. I used to be a late night gym dude myself, man. And there's nothing like late night gym because there's nobody in there. So everything is at your full disposal, right? You go in there, you can get on whatever you want. You ain't got to worry about somebody being on it. It takes it to another level now that, we've experienced COVID. You ain't got to worry about being away from people, even though if you go to the gym, you probably ain't really worried about it too much. But still, it's more confident knowing that ain't nobody else in here. You ain't got to worry about, spacing out and staying away from people. Late night gym is awesome, except that it makes you wired. And now when you come home and you need to go to sleep, I can't speak for you. I go to the gym, I come home, I'm amped. I can't just go to sleep. And then now you take a bath, you start to relax, and then you are able to then go to sleep. But it takes a while. So, and then you take your protein, and it's just there are some drawbacks to going to the gym at night. But anyway, I digress. Enjoy the gym, man. I do miss going at night for all the reasons I just mentioned. It's always a good experience being in the gym late at night. Appreciate you, DC Fan 88. Let's see. Dejan Bell. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Dejan writes, let's all praise Ron's plan. Hashtag optimistic Lou. Well, you already know I'm not waffling on Ron's plan. That's not my style. I wouldn't have put it on a t-shirt if I didn't believe in it. So I'm not waffling on Ron's plan. I believe in Ron's plan. I was so stoked when we got him here. He chose us. We did not choose him. He was the best option that we could get at the time. I didn't even think we deserved a guy the caliber of Ron Rivera. Some people are questioning his credentials. Oh, he only won in Carolina because he had Cam Newton. This, that, and the third, which is fair. I'm not going to sit here and argue and debate whether or not it was the chicken or the egg. At the end of the day, he did make it to a Super Bowl. The Panthers were a good team year in, year out for the most part. They were well-disciplined and well coached. And I think that he's going to instill a lot of that here. And I think if he gets the right quarterback, which this is what he's trying to do now, it will expedite the process and kind of start getting this organization to where he really needs it to be in order for us to be competitive year in, year out. And The first thing he had to do was change the culture when he got here. He's helped do that. Now, our owner is still Daniel Snyder, so there's only so much you can do. But Ron has done a hell of a job of changing the narrative surrounding this team. It's not all negative when you talk about this organization anymore. And a lot of that credit goes to Ron Rivera. The play on the field still leaves a lot to be desired, but some of that is his fault. Some of it isn't. You know, at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do with what you have. And our quarterback position has really put us in a bind, which is why he did what he did this offseason to try to fix it. Did he fix it? None of us know the answer to that. Ron doesn't even know the answer to that. But can't really knock the man for trying, you know. He tried to go after Aaron Rodgers. He tried to go after Derek Carr. He tried to go after, Russell Wilson. They didn't want to come here. What are you going to do? You can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. So he kicked the tires on a lot of different options. And what he found out is all those tires were dry rot. So now he's like, okay, well, go to the next best option. It was Carson Wentz, and you keep it pushing. Do what you got to do, and you figure it out. So here we are. We'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. You know how I roll. Andrew Canada, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Drew writes, what slot cornerbacks you like in this year's draft? I got a lot of work to do on the corners in particular. I do know that there are a couple of guys that didn't play in the nickel in college, but their games and their size translates to them moving inside. But again, inside work is not for everybody. The nickel is not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. You know, like we just assume, oh, Jimmy Moreland, oh, he's got good feet. He's not the biggest corner in the world, but he's got ball skill. Oh, we can just move Jimmy inside. Jimmy struggled inside. Because that's just not what Jimmy was used to doing. That's not where he played in college at James Madison. So you can't just take a dude because he's small and say, hey, we just move him inside. But it's some dudes that are some dogs that I like a lot. But there's no proof that they can play inside, because that's really what I'm consumed. And maybe I don't need to be as consumed with nickel, but I'm obsessed with us getting a nickel corner. You know, I looked at what, remember I said this all last offseason, man, I really want Mike Hilton from the Steelers. I remember after we played the Steelers, Mike Hilton was everywhere in the game when we played the Steelers 2 years ago. And I was like, man, Mike Hilton is a beast. And then he was available. I was like, yo, I want Mike Hilton, man. I want a dude like that in the slot. And he signed with Cincinnati, and he tore it up for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was part of the reason they were in the damn Super Bowl. He was outstanding. And I'm like, that's what we need. That's what the game's missing. I'm obsessed with getting a nickel corner. So, I got work to do, but it's a couple of dudes that I really like, but I'm not sure if they can play inside or not. Jack Curry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Jack Curry writes, Drake London, USC, big body receiver. Don't know. 4'11". Well, he's one of those receivers that is in the running for being the first taken off the board. You know, him, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson. I think that's the group right there, pretty much, of the receivers that may hear their name called first in this year's draft. You know, it would have been interesting had the Alabama receivers like Jamison Williams been healthy. They would have made it really, really interesting. But I think those are the three names that you keep hearing over and over and over again that could potentially go number one, receiver off the board. We'll see what happens, what Washington, values at that 11th pick, whether it's taking a guy, trading back, who's available. Because I think there's a realistic possibility that we get to 11 and only one quarterback's taken. Carolina's taking a quarterback. Carolina's taking Kenny Pickett. Unless somebody else trades up in front of them. I don't see anybody trading up. Or the Giants, surprise us. They got 2 top 10 picks and they take a quarterback. I just assume Carolina will take Kenny Pickett and that'll be the only quarterback that goes in front of us. But I think it's a realistic possibility we get to 11 and no linebackers have been touched. No wide receivers have been touched. And, 1 or 2 corners have gone. And the one safety will be gone, more likely than not. And one quarterback will be gone. And it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in. Because I think you can see 4 edge rushers go in the top 10 before we even make a selection. I can see both Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, Walker from Georgia, and Johnson from Florida State, all gone in the first 10 picks. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened at all. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Washington football fan WGIL. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, "Sup, Lou? Name your wide receiver, middle linebacker, and offensive guard." In what way? From the draft? On the roster? What are you asking me to do? If you're talking about the draft, it'll be interesting because for us, obviously the dynamic has changed. You're only you don't have you've got a 2nd round pick. You don't have a 3rd round pick. So you essentially have 2 picks in the first 2 days of the draft. That's it. So you got to be really, really sure of what you're doing and who you want to go after. And you have to be thorough in your evaluation because you can't afford to miss. When you got 11, 12 picks, you can afford to miss on 1 or 2 of them because you got all these picks. You might get lucky and hit. You might not hit on that 2nd round dude, but you might get lucky and hit on the dude in the 7th because you got 4 of those. Or you might not hit on a dude in the 3rd, but you got 3 4th round picks. So, one of the 4th round picks might come up clutch for you. And so the 3rd rounder that you missed on, hey, it's all good. You have 3 4th rounders. We don't have that crutch to lean on. So every pick is important. You know what I mean? We had 10 picks last year, and 3 of them were in the 7th round. And you're like, all right, 10 picks. Let's see what we got. Maybe one of these 7th round dudes, and we gonna find out. Because if Dax Milne can ball, one of them 7th round picks might really turn into something. It might make up for the fact that we may not get anything out of De'Ami Brown, or we may not get anything out of John Bates. We don't know. But you get that opportunity to maybe cancel something out when you got more picks. We don't have that option. We don't have that luxury. You get 6 of these things, you got to get them right. If you're asking me my favorite at those positions right now, let me get my notes out real quick. Now, I think I can give you a little something if I So for receivers, I'm a big Chris Olave fan, and I really like Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. Those are two guys in particular that I'm really feeling right now. Love me some Sky Moore as well out of Western Michigan. What else position? You asked me middle linebacker. I give you some linebackers. Now, I got work to do there because just because he's a linebacker doesn't mean he's a middle linebacker. But give you some names of guys that intrigue me. Leo Chanel from Wisconsin, Nakobe Dean, Troy Anderson from Montana State. These are all guys that are really interesting. Obviously, Devin Lloyd from Utah is another one. Chad Muma from Wyoming is another guy that I think is very interesting at the linebacker position. So these are all guys. DeMarco Jackson from App State is another name that could be interesting at the linebacker position. Of that group, Troy Anderson was the one that popped for me the most at the combine. But again, I don't know if he's truly a middle linebacker or if he's an off-the-ball linebacker. So if he's a middle linebacker, that's a guy that's super, super intriguing for me. And then you asked me about guard. So there are a couple of guys that stood out for me at guard. I think right now my favorite guard in the draft is Zion Johnson out of Boston College. He's probably not going to be there. I think he'll be probably a second-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody took him in the first round, but I don't think he'll go in the first round. I think he'll go in the second round. And we'll have a second-round pick. You know, do you want to spend your second-round pick on a guard? I don't know. That's up to you. That's up for them to decide. But those are the guys that I like at those positions. Dejon Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Buffalo should have traded for Matt I. They shiesty. Why trade for him when I know you're going to release him? That's why a lot of teams don't trade for guys because they know they're getting released. That's why nobody traded for La'el Collins, because why take on that contract the way it is when I can let you get released and I can get you to agree to a new contract with a better situation for my cap. Now, you know, when you don't trade for a guy, you run the risk of exposing him to the rest of the league, and now he gets to choose where he goes. But that's the risk you're willing to take instead of taking on a contract that doesn't fit your cap situation. So let's see. All right. That was the last super chat. So all in all, Carson Wentz debuted with the media, got to hear from him. We heard from Ron. It's pretty much what I expected. Good to hear from him. He sounds upbeat, looking forward to the opportunity. He's looking forward to getting to work. And he didn't make any excuses. That was the thing that I enjoyed the most. He didn't make any excuses. Like, you know, he pretty much owned everything and said, look, I didn't play well down the stretch. We didn't make it to the playoffs. You know, it was a tough situation, but I made a lot of friends in Indy, just like I did in Philly. You know, I feel like I'm continuing to grow as a quarterback, and, you know, we'll see if this is the one that stops all of this movement. If this is the opportunity that is the, you know, end all be all for me and my family. So he's looking forward to the opportunity. We're looking forward to giving him that opportunity, and hopefully it pays off huge dividends for us, man, because Lord knows we tired, man, and we ready to find that guy. So anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you guys for joining me. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, post up, take command. You guys enjoy your weekend. Tons of college b-ball on the tube for your consumption. Enjoy, suck it up. We will reconvene next week. If anything big happens, hopefully it waits until I get back into the office. I will not be in the office, but if it's huge, I might have to jump on the celly and do something. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see us engaging in anything major over the weekend. Like, that's not where we at with ours. Like I said, the biggest move that we'll make this offseason, we've already made it. That's Carson Wentz. There will be no more bombshells being dropped by this organization. Okay? So the next big piece of news that will really move the needle, in a major way for us is Terry's extension. And that's not coming until probably July at the earliest. So in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. Until next time, you know what it is. Take command. Have a good one.